We are recording, so we're ready.
All right. This open meeting of the Treyton Regional School Committee is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12, 2020, and the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. In order to mitigate the transmission of the virus, we've been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings, and as such, the governor's order suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of public bodies are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. I hereby call to order the March 31st, 2021 meeting of the Treyton Regional School Committee at 7 p.m. I am Narissa Wallen, Chair of the Treyton Regional School Committee, and I would like to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Erin?
I'm here and I can hear you.
Thank you. Paul Goldner?
I'm here and I can hear you.
Thank you. Maureen?
I'm here and I can hear you.
Thank you. Caitlin?
I'm here and I can hear you.
Thank you. Paulise?
I'm here and I can hear you.
Thank you. Linda?
I'm here and I can hear you.
Thank you. Paul Mayette?
I'm here and I can hear you.
Thank you. And I don't think I saw Tina on the list. This would have been her last night. She was eligible to serve anyway. All right. Staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Treyton Superintendent Brian Forget.
Here and I can hear you.
Thank you. Assistant Superintendent Kim Croto.
I am here and I can hear you.
Thank you. School Business Administrator Kyle Warren.
I'm here and I can hear you.
Thank you. And also anticipated on the agenda is Shannon Nolan.
I'm here and I can hear you.
Caught you off guard. Sorry about that. Thank you. For this meeting, the Treyton School Committee is convening remotely via Zoom using the information posted on the district's website identifying how the public may join. If you are personally attending by video conference using your device's camera, please be aware that others may be able to see you. Committee members and administrators, please remember to mute your phone or computer when you are not speaking. All supporting materials that have been provided to members of this body are available on the district's website with the agenda posting unless otherwise noted. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda. Each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted by a roll call vote. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and that anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. All right, so welcome to the March 31st, I can't believe we're here already, meeting of the Treyton Regional School Committee. I don't have any comments tonight, so we're going to move directly on to oral communications from the public. The next item on the agenda is public comment. Members of the public, the meeting host muted you as you entered the meeting. If you would like to address the committee, please indicate now that you would like to do so, either by raising your hand on your video call or using the raise hand option on the participant screen. The meeting host will unmute you so that you can address the committee. Please refer to the public comment policy language on the agenda when making your comments, and remember to speak clearly and in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. When you have finished speaking, the meeting host will mute you again. And I'll read aloud what it says on the agenda. It says, member of the public may address the committee for up to 3 minutes, longer with the permission of the chairperson. The committee will not engage in a discussion on topics raised during public comment, but may choose to add the topic to a future agenda. The agenda segment will be limited to 15 minutes unless extended at the discretion of the chairperson. And for anyone who's been here in the past, you're probably very familiar with this, but we, it's three minutes per person. When you have 1 minute left, I'll give you the 1 minute time, 30 seconds left, and at 3 minutes, you need to wrap up your comments. So is there anyone who would like to address the committee during public comment tonight? Again, you can use the raise hand option in your participant screen, or you can raise your hand on your video call. And I am seeing none. All right, moving on then. Oh, sorry, what did you say, Brian?
I didn't see anyone else either.
Okay, thank you. You were looking down, so I assumed you weren't scanning tonight. All right, we're going to move on to item 4 then, which is the appointment of the Administrator of Special Education, and I'm going to hand it over to the superintendent.
All right, thank you very much. I also wanted to note, I don't know if you saw Kaylee did come in. She popped in, so just to.
Thank you. I did not. I had scanned for her and she wasn't there, so I did not list her name, but welcome Kaylee. Kaylee is our student representative to the school committee. So she's a full member of the committee, non-voting member of the committee. Kaylee, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
All right. Thank you, Kaylee.
Thank you.
All right, I'll turn it back over to you, Brian.
All right. So thank you, Narissa. So I am recommending to you tonight Shannon Nolan to be the new Administrator of Special Education, just by way of process, to remind you that the positions, any district office positions, the role of oversight of special education, oversight of finances, so Kyle's position, and any position that has assistant superintendent in the title has to be approved by the school committee on the superintendent's recommendation. So I'm bringing to you tonight Shannon as my recommendation for the appointment as the new special education administrator. So as you know, this position is being vacated by Dave McGee on June 30th. We started the process, I posted in January, and we had 16 applicants for the position. This is not, we'll say this several times, not an easy position to fill. This is tends to be a very challenging position. Thank you, Shannon, for your interest in overall. So we had 16 applicants. We actually identified 6 that we were bringing in for interviews. Before we had that first round of interviews, actually one candidate did back out. So we conducted interviews in a first round with 5 candidates. There were 2 panels made up of educators, ETCs, parents, and administrators. 2 separate panels. Each panel interviewed each of the candidates separately. Based on that process, we identified 3 finalists. 1 finalist was further removed from the process based on some further background checks that I was doing as far as further due diligence. So we had 2 finalists that moved forward in the process, Shannon Nolan being one of them. These 2 finalists came back 2 additional days and sat through 4 additional group or individual interviews. One included the group of ETCs and the special ed admin assistant. Another group was the district leadership team. Kyle, Kim, and I met separately with the building principals on a separate day. And then I also met with each of the finalists individually. So all constituents had an opportunity to have input into this process and provide feedback. Ultimately, I had to make the decision based on the candidates that we had and who I believe was the right fit. So we were lucky to have great candidates apply for this position, to have 2 finalists who were both of extremely high caliber. That's always good, bad for the candidates, great for the district to have choices. And so we were able to truly look into at the candidates individually and look at the strengths that they brought, because both were very highly qualified. So ultimately, I made the decision based on Shannon Nolan's experience and leadership, a very proven track record as a leader. And so, my recommendation is for Shannon Nolan to be the new special education administrator effective July 1st. So a little bit on Shannon's background. Shannon was a teacher here in the Treyton district at Salisbury Elementary, regular education from 2001 to 2005 for 4 years. She was then a special educator for 7 years. The final 4 years of that, she ran the district-wide ACE program, or the behavioral program over at Salisbury Elementary School, but that was a district-wide program. She then moved on to be the assistant principal at Salisbury Elementary School for 3 years. Without a principalship available, she broached out into other districts, went to Haverhill at the Hunking School for 4 years, and is now currently the principal at Amesbury Elementary School. So I have already said my apologies to the current interim superintendent of Amesbury for stealing Shannon back. But based on her track record and what she's known in the district for her educational expertise. She's a talented and gifted educator. We know she's a passionate advocate for all students. And so we know firsthand that reputation. And then in regards to her leadership, obviously her leadership role at Salisbury was more limited and short term, but that reputation comes back very strong from both Haverhill and Amesbury in regards to Shannon's ability as a leader. So I'm very confident in making this recommendation. This is, the special education administrator role is a new role. She has a strong special education background, but we're also had a lot of discussions with Shannon about supports including connecting her with, our staff to make sure that there's a smooth transition. There's a DESE and Accept Collaborative Special Educator Administrator Institute that Shannon would participate in. And that would be an intensive over the summer and into the year. And then also connecting her to all the resources in the local area through the collaboratives. There's a very strong network of special ed administrators that she would be very quickly interested in tapping into long before July 1st even. So I think that's the totality of what I wanted to share. I don't know, Shannon, is there anything you wanted to quickly share with the committee?
Well, I'm impressed. You got it all.
Okay, good.
Thank you. Thank you. This is such a wonderful opportunity. I thank Superintendent Forget and the team for putting me forward. And I look forward to coming to Treyton. It's a great opportunity. Thank you.
So I don't know if are there questions from the committee. I would assume you have a draft of the contract and I can kind of quickly go through the details of that, but I don't know if there are questions for Shannon first or for me.
Questions from the committee? All right. I guess my only one, I would just ask Shannon, what's your motivation in making this move? I mean, obviously, I think this is something you've been headed toward when I look at your resume, but I guess why now, why here? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So obviously I started my career here in Treyton, and I taught here and I was in administration, and I know, the community is wonderful. The school system is strong and, passionate about learning and students. And when I left here, I always had this position in mind. I felt like that's where I want to go. So when it came up, I had to go for it. It was something that I really wanted. So it's my heart is in it, and I really, really look forward to it.
Thank you. Any other questions from the committee? All right. Brian, would you mind giving us a quick rundown on the contract?
Well, you'd want to grill her a little bit. I told her it's like a super tough crowd. So the contract that I did set up to the committee shortly ago, it is a standard administrator contract. It's a 260-day work year, 25 vacation days. So it's a year-round position, 5 weeks vacation. All of the other benefits, sick days, access to the same healthcare everyone else has access to. So that's all standard. The only other thing that adjusts in her contract is my recommendation of a starting salary of $125,000, and there's a flat $2,000 travel stipend. That has not changed. That is the same stipend that's been attached to the position for quite some time now. So I'm happy to walk through the contract if there are questions about it, but I think you've seen others pretty straightforward.
Yeah, very similar to what we've seen before. Any questions from the committee? All right, seeing none. It's quiet, very quiet. Oh, please, there we go.
So Shannon, how long are you gonna stay?
For a long time.
This is not a stepping stone, I hope.
No,
It's
this
a
is
very,
where I
very
want to
important
be.
position that you're stepping into. And Dave's done
Absolutely.
a fine job, but we need some stability. We want to make sure, especially having had a tough year with COVID-19 and social emotional issues and all the children that are struggling with that. Just want to know that you're going to be here for a while.
I am. I definitely am. Thank you.
I actually, when Shannon mentioned that she had eyed this position for a long time, I didn't know that until she reached out to me when the position was posted. I've had other people at Salisbury mention that you said, I want to come back someday when you were still a teacher, saying, I really want to be the special education director, which the rest of the world calls it, and at Treyton specifically. So
For sure.
speaks volumes.
Have me, I'll stay.
All right.
All right, so can I get a motion to approve the appointment and contract as presented for Shannon Nolan as the new administrator of special education with a start date of July 1st, 2021, please?
I'll make that motion.
Maureen, thank you.
I'll second.
Paul Goldner. All right, any additional discussion? All right, seeing none, I need a roll call vote, please. Erin?
Yes.
Thank you. Paul Goldner.
Yes.
Thank you. Maureen.
Yes.
Thank you. Caitlin.
Yes.
Thank you. Paulise.
Yes,
Thank you. Linda.
Yes.
Thank you. Paul Mayette.
Yes.
And I don't think that I saw Tina log in between. I'm trying to watch.
No, she's on here.
Coming in. Nope, no Tina. All right, and I am a yes as well. So that's a unanimous vote. Congratulations, Shannon, and welcome on board. And we'll be seeing you frequently.
Welcome.
Too frequently lately.
Well done. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you all. I appreciate the confidence in my recommendation, and certainly in Shannon. I know she will do tremendous things and be a great addition to our team.
Yes, thank you. And thank you to everyone that worked on those, the interview rounds. I know that's a time investment and time when, you know, obviously we have don't have an excess of free time and there's a lot going on. So I appreciate everyone from parents to staff members to the administration who served on those groups to kind of go through the finalists and make sure that we had a great choice. So thank you.
And I also want to give a shout out. So I reached out to the CPAC. We haven't had a functioning CPAC in a while. We have a kind of a couple, Lissa Forza and Alicia Davidson, who are interested and are trying to get the CPAC up and running and have a core membership now. So I actually reached out to them to get the members, and we had 4 parents who stepped up to be part of that. So very much appreciated.
Yes, thank you very much. All right, moving on to item 5, an update on return to full in-person learning, please. And I think this is back to you, Brian.
Yeah, so we'll, I'm gonna ask Kim to give a kind of an update on sessions and numbers and kind of the academics piece, and then Kyle to give an update on the logistics of where we're at. And then I'll give a quick update on just some pooled testing, which is some new data we got.
Great. So you want me to start?
Kim, you go first.
Okay. So as you know, the survey closed last Friday, and that survey was sent out to all the families to indicate where their child would be on April 7th, whether they would be coming back full in person, remote, streaming at the high school, or at the high school staying in the Florida virtual school. We were somewhat surprised to see that the majority of the students are actually staying in their current model, except for the folks who were hybrid and wanted to go full in person, which we knew that there would be the majority of shifting. From that number, again, at the elementary school, there were only 2 families that chose to move from hybrid to remote for various reasons. And then at the middle school, I want to say the numbers were around 8 at the 7th grade, 9 at the 8th grade, who were going to choose to go in person as opposed to staying with their teachers and streaming now. At the high school, there were only 2 Florida FLVS students who are going to be in person. I know that was a really big concern for teachers and students themselves as they were shifting from one platform and one content kind of scope and sequence to another one. For those students who are shifting to full-time in person, we have a kind of transitional setting for them where we're looking at their current content, looking at their academic standing, looking to see where there may be some gaps, and then setting up some tutoring if that is needed. We also have 8 Florida students who are actually going to be streaming. So they are going back into that Treyton curriculum, but they are doing so at home through that streaming option that was not available to them in the past. But the majority of the students are staying in there. I think one of the motivators for them is that it is self-paced. So for some of them who would like to accelerate their learning and complete their course before that June end date, they do have that option. And they're still being monitored by the content specialist that is been divided between the middle school and high school. I will say some of the hiccups that we ran into at the elementary school, there were 2 remote sessions that so many students did end up going back. They were smaller sessions where we had such a small number of students left. We had to collapse those classrooms. So that did impact a small percentage, or not even a percentage, just really a small group of students. The ones that are staying are either being reassigned to their another remote teacher, or at the elementary school, there's one 3rd grade session where their classroom is going to be streaming, and she had the option and she said she would absolutely do that. So as a unit, that particular class will stay together. It's just that they will have a different teacher. And for both of those teachers, for some of them, it was personal reasons that they could no longer be the remote teachers. So we are, like I said, preparing for that, and we've talked to the parents. We also have created transition forms. So the remote teacher has filled out an academic sheet where it describes where the student has ended as far as units and chapters in our various content areas, as well as any social and emotional needs that might be met, whether they have a 504 or an IEP. And so a lot of those discussions, after they have received those transition forms, will take place on that Tuesday prior to the students arriving. I'm trying to think what else is really important to share with you. I would also just like to acknowledge the work that Anna Bates has done over the last couple of weeks, and really reaching out to families, making sure that communication is done in a weekly and timely fashion, so that all of the kids know where they're going. And they have not received their schedules yet, but hopefully by the end of the week, that is our target for that particular group. Also a shout out to Lori Mowbray and all of the school secretaries. As that survey data came in, it was constantly changing, and we had to update our lists, which there's a whole, what do you call it, technology piece behind this, where we had to shift platforms, and it is very, many layers to it, let's put it that way. So a lot of time went into that and effort from those people. So I just want to acknowledge the work that they did. I'll stop right there just to find out if there are any specific questions that you have about the transition.
Questions from the committee? Perhaps not a surprise. I have a couple. Okay. Oh, Maureen.
Sorry, I was trying to, anyway. Kim, just a quick question. The students that you were talking about that have to condense, the remote students that are going to have a new teacher, how many students did you say that is affecting?
Yep. So in 3rd grade, I want to say there are 4 that are going in person, and then 3 that are remoting in, or they're live streaming. So it's 7.
I can correct that. I understand it's 2 coming back in from out of district, 2 moving remote to in person, and 3 staying remote. I talked to Nicole briefly about that today.
Oh, okay. So the 2, are you talking about the 2 private?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yes.
So there's 2 more private adding from that. Yep.
Okay.
So
And
that's
then
7. And then the other one is 6th grade, and that has 5 right now, but it's most likely going to end up for 3.
5
They're
students.
going from 6th grade, they were in John Collier's class, and they're going back to actually Kelly Buckley.
And okay, that's remote, right?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. And just to piggyback on what Narissa said, at PGS, I want to say they had a total of 3 private kiddos coming back. And then as far as homeschoolers, remember, we doubled the amount of students who were homeschooled this year, and we have 9 coming back. So that's kind of a whole different transition process, because they have been keeping portfolios and they are bringing those in and sharing those with the teachers.
I was going to say, so our assumption all along is we were bringing these students back for next year, knowing some would choose. This is a hard time to transition back, right, in April to finish for the final 10 weeks. But obviously, if students want to transition back, we're glad to have them back. But just at those, I think 10 homeschoolers you said, and right, those are larger numbers than what we had assumed.
Yeah.
it doesn't change anything in regards to our overall planning.
Thank you. Maureen, are you all set? Yep. Okay. Erin?
Sorry, Kim, I didn't catch how many Florida students did you say are staying with the Florida program?
So all except for 8 are going to be streaming.
Yeah.
And 2 are coming back in person.
And I don't remember, I'm sorry, I don't remember the number we had in that.
I want to say it was around 48, 50.
I think it was just shy of 50. It was about
Yeah, it was like, yeah.
fluctuates between 45 and 50.
Okay.
And Kim, do you know the number, and I know this is still a work in progress, the number of hybrid students currently who are going to choose to fully stream?
At the high school, yeah, that was around 35, 40. It was getting up to 40. So at this point, the high school teachers have not received their final lists because we did not get all of the responses from parents. So they have been, again, going back to kind of the people on the ground, really making all of the phone calls, trying to get in touch with parents to find out where and what their students will be doing. But yeah, it was around in that 30.
Can you also talk to us a little bit about, you mentioned that there's a bunch of the Florida students that want to stay at their own pace and finish early.
Yep.
What does finish early mean? What do they do?
So the program's all self-paced. So they have units that are set up and they are all designated to be completed within a certain set time. As long as they are moving through the assessments and completing their assignments. And remember, they have a coach that is also attending to their grades, making sure they're getting the work done. They can finish it at a quicker pace if they do. Now, obviously, they're not going to be finishing at the end of April, but that's not to say that that might not happen. So we're absolutely looking at that. And I talked to Patrick, and he even mentioned that there might be a possibility if they do finish early to take like a half credit or a credit course even towards next year.
So is that the plan, that if they finish before the school year is over, that they would be given additional assignments or some additional course to be able to?
They could. That has not yet been. These are all things that could happen if they decide to see. It really depends on where they end that course and how much time is left. If they're a senior, what are the options there? And so that is going to be looked at a case by case, I would say, individual placement as far as what the child has done in their grades and such.
As with so many other things in this pandemic, it's a gray area, because when we're attending school, we know the hours, we know it's 180 days, 170 this year. With the implementation of a Florida virtual in many high schools around the state, this self-paced model, we're not necessarily taking attendance on a daily basis like we do for students in the schools. We're keeping track of their progress. And for those students who have really thrived in that model, like Kim said, they're way ahead trying to wrap up the year. So the question will be, what can we offer them? That's easy. What can we require them to do? That's more challenging. So we're trying to figure that out.
What is Department of Ed's position on this?
Nothing yet. It's right. It's a gray area. We've never done remote education, so for even TECA and these other remote academies and such, it's live attendance in a remote classroom, like our entire elementary schools. Remote academy, meaning it's, you're there every day streaming live with a teacher. Some self-paced, some asynchronous, the new word of 2020. But it's this whole concept of an entire high school year being achieved in this self-paced platform. It's not something that's ever been done.
And I would say for the majority of those students who are still enrolled in the Florida virtual school, I would say 80% of them are still connected to the high school, right? So even if they had a self-paced class or course that they finished, they would still have the pacing of the Treyton school course that they are attending.
And still remain connected with our educators and
they wouldn't
participating in extracurriculars and you name it.
So I do not anticipate that all of the students will be completing all of their courses between now and 2 weeks from now. I do anticipate some of the kids who've had a lot of success in some of those courses, who are working on the weekends to get through some of them, that could absolutely happen. And if that does, we will continue to monitor, and they will work with the guidance counselor to figure out, depending on the year of graduation, how many credits, where they are in the course, what their plan of action would be.
Okay. Thanks.
Yep.
All set, Aaron? Yep, okay. Paul Goldner had a hand, and then I think he
Disappeared and then he came back.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I'm back. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I was just curious, you said you were still tracking down some students at the high school. About how many are you tracking down still to find out what they're doing?
So we had 150 as of Friday, and I want to say they've been making calls all week. They were able to track down 70 more, and they're waiting for the remainder. We're assuming that the ones that they have not been able to get in touch with are first of all, we made sure we were able to get all the students from the Florida virtual school. So those kids, we already know what they're doing. It's the other kids who are hybrid, and we're just assuming that they're most likely going to go in person. That's pretty much where, when they do follow up with the families, they just assume they didn't have to let us know, because to them, they're in their heads, there's no change in setting. They're just going more days.
And is it an accurate statement to say kids were still tracking down, or kids were routinely tracking down?
Pretty much, yeah. I would say it's larger, though. It's definitely larger.
Oh, no, absolutely. But the kids we've been attempting and struggling to reach and connect with all year are the same. We're still continuing to find challenge.
Yes.
Oh, Lise?
Were there additional families in the elementary and middle school that haven't responded to the survey?
I believe they've pretty much got in contact with all of the parents there, maybe 2 or 3 that they left messages for. But I would say that they had definitely a higher rate of success reaching out to the elementary parents. Absolutely. And we did, just so you know, at the elementary level, and we will be at the middle school and high school level, we did take down, well, the survey is up there. So if somebody tries to respond to that survey, we did put a notice to say, please contact the school, because what happens is once we start doing the switch over in Aspen and all the educational platforms, we don't necessarily have that information doesn't get fed into, well, it gets fed into the system, but unless we're constantly tracking that, we won't know that. We do that usually when we do pre-K and kindergarten. And so if we do get a few different folks who come in, we're able to respond to that rather quickly instead of a week out. So, and the other thing, just to let you know, is that we really made a strong statement about, after that April 7th change, that there would be a 4-week waiting period, because that was a large concern, as it would be very disruptive, especially as we're heading into the kind of the last leg of the school year. And that's not to say, somebody asked me if somebody had to go into quarantine or something like that, that's totally different, but as a general rule.
Other questions from the committee? Are you handling transportation? I know that was also in that survey. Are we talking about that separately, or?
Kyle will talk about that.
Kyle will talk about that later. Okay. So my only other question, I guess, was on space. We had talked about space potentially being tight for some of the high school classes. Obviously, it sounds like the elementary school was ironed out, because I know that the 2 grades that you specifically talked about were the ones that you had highlighted before as potentially having space concerns, but there were some, I don't remember if you had said any at the middle school, but definitely at the high school. Are those going to be all set?
Yep.
So it'd be having classes in different locations. So there are a couple sections where there's like a 27, and the room would hold 24 at 3 feet. So any of those, all of those have been worked out, that the schedule, either they move to the library or another location that allows the larger spacing. So there's
Okay.
there's no
So
road.
Okay, perfect. That was it, other than transportation was my other question. So if Kyle's gonna be talking about that later, then I'll hold my questions until we're good. We get there.
Yeah, I would have to say out of all the transitions, I feel people and just kind of the vibes that I'm getting from at least the teachers, they are less stressed out about this last movement than any other movement. I just feel like they're seeing that there's hope, not just for the rest of this year, but come the fall, that we'll get into a pattern. And yeah, it feels good.
Well, and now I don't know anyone who doesn't have at least one dose.
Yep.
Seen, and I'm, by the day, I'm hearing more and more who are receiving their second dose. So when you talk about the confidence, Kim, I think that is in large part because of, as teachers have said all along,
Yeah.
they feel very different when they're vaccinated. So
Mhm.
doesn't mean it's stress-free, but
Right.
much better.
Yes, we don't want to paint an overly positive picture, but just if anxiety was up here, it's been dropped down a little bit. And I think, like Brian had said, having the vaccination done and all of that and the spacing being able to be what it is has absolutely helped.
All right, thank you. Any other questions for Kim before we move on? All right, who are you sending up next, Brian?
Over to Kyle.
All right.
I'll take it from here.
What are we talking about buses, Kyle?
First on the docket. Yeah. So transportation, NRT bus developed the new or updated bus routes to begin next Wednesday, April 7th. So those are going to be posted to our website later this evening. Just working out a little kink in the website right now. But those will be available to all students and parents, as well as a message will go around to the greater Treyton community. Those routes were established looking more traditional than certainly the hybrid method for in-person learning 5 days a week. We're going to continue in the first few weeks with the method of students as they board the bus, they're going to proceed to the next available seat closest to the back of the bus for those first few days, because as the way that the routes were developed was for nearly for every student, but knowing that per the survey results, not all students are going to be taking the bus. After a week or so, we'll then create assigned seating for each student so that instead of pushing to the back of the bus, we can then space out students better for social distancing. The face masks will still be required on all buses. Windows will be open, required to be open 2 clicks as per back in the fall. I know you had some questions on transportation, Narissa, or I can take those first or go through everything else, whatever you'd like.
I just mainly wanted to make sure that it was, being addressed and that we were able to meet it. I had read recently that there were some districts that were having trouble getting bus drivers back on board, or some that had been on that were declining to drive any further. And I just didn't know if we had hit any of that.
I'd say it's been an issue throughout the year. Every district in Massachusetts has had that challenge, and we're certainly not immune to it. And had a conversation with NRT. They're continually trying to get new drivers. We have had instances where a driver calls out, so there's a substitute driver, and that presents some challenges. So there's been some hiccups along the way, but it's a full faith effort for sure.
I think also it's a good opportunity to remember we chose to continue to pay our 78% and continue to pay the drivers through the spring, through the fall, when the buses weren't necessarily running. We didn't go down and save the money and not pay drivers. So maintaining our relationship with our bus contractor is definitely paying dividends now. A lot of those districts that are having challenges, right? Everyone's having the challenges. Finding bus drivers has been an issue for the last decade, and it's absolutely awful right now. But a lot of those districts are those that took very deliberate actions that did not maintain a very good relationship with their contractors.
Yeah, I'm so glad you mentioned that, because where the position we're in compared to other districts is, I would not want to be in their shoes.
Understood. Other questions from the committee about transportation? I guess my one question circling around, Kyle, while I was thinking about this. So I know that the bus drivers have been doing seating charts through the hybrid period. Are they going to continue to do that? I guess got a little lost with you saying, is the only change that they're going to be spreading students out more once the routes settle down, or are they going to stop doing seating charts at some point? For contact tracing would be my question here, I guess.
So we'll continue having seating charts throughout the process. What those look like will evolve slightly. So to start, we have a roster of every student who can take every bus. That's a long list. It pretty much reaches capacity at each bus. But then and so what the bus drivers will do is, as the students are entering the back or boarding the bus, going to the back, they'll be identifying where they're sitting on the bus for those first few weeks or the first week. And then after that point in time, they'll develop an assigned seating chart where each student who typically takes the bus will have a designated spot. So that way, throughout the balance of the year, we'll know every day which seat every student sits in. And that is being heavily monitored on our part.
So it'll be essentially writing it in the beginning and then more like checking a box once they kind of have things settled. Is that, yes?
Exactly.
Okay. All right. Any other
Take
questions?
attendance every day. So there's a seating chart, and then they also are marking on a day-to-day basis who's there. That starts day one.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I've seen their seating charts before. So
Yeah.
I had an idea of what it looked like in the past. I just didn't know how it was evolving through this process. So all right. Any other questions from the committee on that? All right. Kyle, do you have more? I know you've been
handful,
counting.
yeah.
Right?
So, a couple other updates. Pine Grove school desks we've been chatting about. The shipment was delayed a little bit more than we would have liked, but staying glued to that right now. Its estimated delivery is on Friday, which I just checked before the meeting. It's in Virginia right now. So we, from everyone we've been talking to, everything we've been looking at, assured that those will come on Friday. We have the custodians at Pine Grove have offered to take up overtime Friday night and into Saturday to assemble all of those desks and move them into the classrooms. So a little later than we would have liked, but everything's pointing to those desks arriving on Friday. Brian's smiling.
Kyle's had one of those weeks. so if he gets off the phone, he's been holding his hair and it's a little taller. It was one of those phone calls. So yeah, everyone's doing, and again, this is literally going to be down to the wire. So beyond what Kyle's been doing, there's been so many people that are doing yeoman's work trying to make this all happen, but it's going to happen.
Yeah, thank you to custodial staff and everybody over at Pine Grove who's been staying well attuned to that situation as well.
Yeah.
The middle school, high school furniture. So a couple weeks ago, moved all of the desks out of the storage containers back into the classrooms. So that was successful. There's some fine tuning going on right now, but largely that's in good shape and where we want it to be. The tents. So the middle school, high school tents were delivered. We actually had to have DigSafe come out to the parking lot to where we're installing those tents because they're 40-inch stakes that are being driven into the to the parking lot, the asphalt there to secure the tents. There's going to be 4 out back and then 1 in the front. The tents, so all that's good to go. And then the tents are going to be set up by a professional contractor on Friday. The elementary school tents are in transit. They shipped out this morning, so we're expecting those to arrive on Friday. We'll go through the same process of getting that set up by the company, the same contractor there. Then jumping to food service, just a heads up that this coming Monday will be the last Monday of large-scale home meal deliveries. Want to reiterate to everybody that if there's a family in need who can't come to one of the grab and go so the grab and go locations will still be set up at each of the district schools where families can come and pick up meals for the week. We are delivering some meals to families on a much smaller scale, but certainly if there's any families in need there, they can reach out to us directly. And that is, Kim touched upon staffing already. So certainly that's heading, like she suggested. I think things are becoming more manageable at this point in time. So any questions on the items I covered there? Or any
There's some
other?
blue hands for you.
Pardon?
Maureen's up first. I said there are some blue hands for you, Kyle. Maureen's up first.
Kyle, on the tents, so the tents are going to be installed in the parking lot in the back of the high school, and then you said in the front as well. Where in the front? Is it also in the parking lot?
No, so it's right in the main, adjacent to the main entrance there, between the gym and the main entrance. Excuse me, tucked back a little bit. And so the setup there will be slightly different, where it's not, because it's concrete, we can't drive the stakes into the ground. So there's little anchors that'll secure to the concrete that won't create as significant of a tripping hazard. But yeah, right there in that main area.
Okay. And then in the back parking lot, well, I guess two questions. So by having to put them in through the asphalt, does the asphalt have to be replaced after they're taken out?
It'll be, that section will be repaired, but
Repaired.
it won't have to be a full replacement.
Okay. And then the last question is there going to be shortage of parking with the tents that are back there? So
The high school, thank you to them for looking at each of the parking spots that were taken up, and the individuals, students or staff who had parking spots in those locations were shifted to, I think, primarily the side parking lot.
The side lot. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Maureen. Erin.
So Kyle, you mentioned that the elementary tents may arrive, should arrive on Friday. What does that mean in terms of how quickly can we schedule them to get set up? Have we mapped out areas for them? Do we need to call in DigSafe again for them? What happens if they're not here on Friday?
Great question. So delivery on Friday, working with the contractor to get them set up. So just jumping to the middle school, high school tents, we need to have those on when students come back full in person at the middle school, high school, because there's not enough capacity in the cafeteria to safely distance the students. So that's a requirement. Whereas for the elementary school, it's an added space, an elective space, where it helps promote, gives another area for students to either take a mass break or have a snack. But there is sufficient distancing right now inside the school to sustain a few days without those being there. But it's all hands on deck to get those up as soon as possible.
Then also you mentioning the space need triggered me again. Do we have enough desks and chairs or tables to go outside right now for lunch space at the middle school, high school area? And is it anticipated that those are also going up on Friday?
So first part of the question, with the number of desks, yes, we have enough to put out there. And then those will be getting over the week, talking with the head custodian. I think they might be coming either over the course of the weekend to put those out, or on Monday and Tuesday. Monday being a full remote day for students, and Tuesday the professional development day. So there won't be students on site. So by the absolute latest at the end of the day, Tuesday, those would be all set up.
Can I just add the logical follow-up question is, so we're going to have 70 desks outside all the time? So yes, and as part of the, using COVID relief funding and creates capacity in certain areas, we're expanding our security camera coverage around to the back of the building. This has been a need for quite some time. So it's again, one of the silver linings. The funding is allowing us to expand back for any parents who have had student athletes. Door 9, the magic door 9, that entire back area will be covered by surveillance cameras. We have a walkthrough with a vendor coming in this Friday. I don't know if I've circled back with Kyle about that. And then looking at both improving the camera coverage for security reasons, and also providing Wi-Fi access out there that would allow it to be used as an outside classroom with adequate Wi-Fi access as well. So addressing that need as well. That will not be ready for next week, but not too shortly thereafter. Not too far thereafter, not too shortly. Whatever the right phrase is.
Are you all good then, Aaron? All set? Okay. Anybody else have questions for Kyle on, I'll call it furniture and furnishings? All right, seeing none. Anything else on your list, Kyle?
Not on mine. No, thank you.
All right. Brian, thank you. Brian, are you up next or?
Yeah, so the only other thing I was going to add was new information. I sent you all a PowerPoint slide deck, PDF form of a development. It was actually a presentation. It was announced by the governor on Monday, had a meeting with the commissioner yesterday, or on Monday as well, and then a specific PowerPoint or a specific webinar, sorry, with the changes to the pooled testing initiative being run by the state. So looking through the PowerPoint slides, I'm not going to go through them slide by slide. It's a lot of good background information for you. There's several slides up front to talk about the CTC, the Community Tracing Collaborative. The big message there was, if we have information, it doesn't mean we can share that with you, right? So they certainly are a resource, but when they get information, they can support schools, but their loyalty, if you will, is to DPH. And so there will at times be confidential information that they're not able to share with us. But by and large, that was more of an introduction and an added resource there with the education unit. The big changes are starting on that slide where they talked about the fact that this is going to be continued through the rest of the year. This is now through June 30th. They talked about new stimulus funding. I don't know if this was reallocating ESSER 2 or if this is Rescue Act funding that they're counting on, but this will provide funding for pool testing through June 30th for all schools that wish to participate. There's some data there. They have only in 22,697 pools across the state, they've only had 172 pools with positives. So that's 0.8%, less than 1%. And they're, we'll go on to say the number of positive individuals is very likely less than 2 in 1,000. So they're now getting responses in 21-hour turnaround time. They went extensively into they've expanded their vendors. Veritas, if a lot of you have gotten a test in recent days, I know that's what they use at Conley's in Ipswich. It comes from Veritas. They've added Veritas to the list. So there's an increasing list of vendors that are on the state contract to participate in this testing or to provide this testing. They are still saying they would provide some support, but it obviously they provide the coverage and the testing and the supplies. There is still a burden on the school district. So it is not something where the state comes in, provides the testing, or provides the cost for the test for the staffing and everyone. It's something we administer. By and large, it's school nurses that are administering tests in all the districts and my peers that I've spoken with. So if the way this is going to work is there are districts who are obviously participating, there'll be a process where they just say, I want to continue, and the state continues covering their costs. And then there will be a survey in early April, and I believe it was honed down to either likely on Friday, the 9th of April, which is a week from this Friday, or the following Monday, the 12th, the state will be putting out a survey for anyone interested in participating. If it's a new district participation, the requirements are still the same. There's still paperwork and signatures and consent process to go through. They said they've since streamlined that, but anyone who's interested, they will continue to work with us on the process. So the next steps are, is certainly for us to take a look at that. We had a discussion about this. I can share with you, I had a follow-up discussion with our nurses. I know they've talked to a lot of their peers in neighboring districts. I've talked to other superintendents in neighboring districts. The participation rate varies wildly. Talked to some superintendents in some of the schools, the participation rate is 15 to 20%. And other schools where it's been, and that's where, it's been going 6, 7, 8 weeks. There are other districts that have, in certain schools where, it's been shorter turnaround, or it's only been in place for 2, 3, 4 weeks, and they're approaching 80% participation. So the participation is key. And I will say, I said, can I share this on behalf of our nurses? And they all said yes, that collectively, the 5 of them at this point in time, with what we understand to be the interest level, and it being in the vicinity of 50%, that the value is just not there for the time and energy, investment of time and energy. Obviously, we would be spending state money, so that's a lot easier than spending our own money. But still, it is a considerable effort on behalf of the nurses, or to find additional staff and then work with a vendor to potentially offset some of those costs. So that's the only, the big change is continuing the payments and covering the cost of the program through June 30th. So I just wanted to share that information with you because I know that was announced by the governor on Friday, or on Monday rather.
All right, thank you. Questions from the committee? Paul Mayat. Are you stuck on mute?
Oh, no, I didn't hear you.
There you go. Sorry.
I just wanted following decorum. So if there were to be interest on our end, would it be required that we do something by that, I think you said April 12th survey from the state?
It is released on the 9th or the 12th. They didn't say exactly when. They had said early April, then it said 9th or 12th. So that Friday or Monday is when it's released. I don't think it's a 24-hour turnaround. So there would be an opportunity, right? We have the business meeting on the 14th, 2 nights later. Wednesday the 14th is our regular, your regular monthly business meeting. So it certainly could be something where there's an action taken there if there's interest. So yes, I don't believe there'll be a deadline. I think just like now, they're continuing to encourage people to participate. And there are folks who will be joining new, and there are others who I've spoken with who I don't know if they will or will not, but if they had their druthers would kind of fall away from providing it because there's such low participation that it's just not providing meaningful intel in regards to the trajectory of the cases in the schools.
Yeah, I'm curious. I'm thinking about what was the date that our original poll went out exactly? It was prior to the governor's dictate to come back, yes?
Yes.
I'm just curious if our participation, given the change in status for the schools and the rise in numbers since then, I'm just curious if our participation would look different now.
Yeah, very well.
No, obviously you can't answer.
You're right. I can't answer whether it would look different. It very well could. I can absolutely tell you, that survey was put out on the 10th of February, or the survey was created, I should say.
I do worry about survey fatigue, but I almost wonder if it's worth asking again.
Do you have more thoughts to add there, Paul, or do you want me to move on and we'll let that settle? Okay. Maureen?
I was just to confirm, it was open from the 5th to the 10th. The responses are all between February 5th and 10th.
I worry about surveying again, because I feel like the parents that I heard from that didn't want to participate, I don't think that anything will have changed for them. But I certainly haven't talked to everybody, but I also have concerns about the fact that the nurses have expressed, concern about running this program. It is a lot of work to fall on them. And, I just have a hard time supporting it if our participation rate is going to be low. And if, we look at the data that was provided on these slides that Brian sent us, that all the pooled tests that have been done, they've actually only returned such a small percentage of positive tests. So is it worth that to put that on the backs of our nurses, when they have to also do their job, their regular job? So it's just a concern I have about the actual administration of how that would roll out with our nurses. So.
Can I just add one thing that reminded me when you said that, Maureen? The question was asked very specifically. I know there are districts that have attempted to create policy where it's a requirement for students, and it has been made very clear by the department that this cannot be a requirement, that we are, if we're not allowing the student to come back, we're excluding them. And that concept of excluding from school, it has a whole series of codes and regulations and case law behind it that we have to have very, very specific reason to be able to exclude a child from school. So
right, and if I understand correctly, Brian, the only thing that we could possibly require it for would be something like athletics or something that where it's they're choosing to participate in something. Not saying that that's what we would do, but just, that's the only thing, the only cases I've heard where it can be required. Is that correct?
yeah, and I think if I was an attorney, I would tell you, well, I don't know, I'm not so sure about that, but that's happening in some places, yes.
Okay.
That hasn't been challenged yet. So I think the same thing could apply, but given that it's a voluntary activity, as you mentioned, that certainly changes the dynamic significantly in regards to our ability to exclude, yes.
Mm. Okay.
Especially when health and safety is involved.
Yeah.
You have something more to add, Maureen? Are you thinking, or?
No, I'm done.
You're done, okay. Caitlin, I feel like this conversation has a lot of like hangout at the end of the comments.
I guess, so before, and I just looked back in my notes. So I think before, when we first began so long ago talking about pool testing, Brian, there was a percentage that you felt it would be valuable, and it was between like 72 and 78% if we had that buy-in. Is that, so I guess more to the point, did you speak with the nurses about if there was a certain percentage of buy-in where they would feel it was valuable?
Yeah, I don't remember my comment. I don't remember being so specific as 72.
It was like, well, because of the money aspect, like if we're to get the buy-in, if we don't have 75, or it wasn't an exact but I was looking back, just trying to see what ballpark we were aiming for.
For me, I mean, I thought of it as it needs to be a significant majority of the population. In my head, 80, 85%, because that means the investment is going to catch the majority of inherent cases that are floating around the school largely undetected. So I did not ask the question specifically of the nurses about what the percentage. No, I could certainly ask them that, but I did not ask them, is there a specific number?
I guess I echo a lot of what Paul Mayette said, just kind of, I guess I kind of want to fully travel down that road and see where we land. I'm not saying like, I agree that putting all of that on the backs of nurses is a lot to ask, but if we have a significant uptick in families because they're going full in person and certain, regulations and standards have shifted, if this would be something that now they would feel is necessary for them to feel more comfortable, And that same goes for the high school students. I think before it was less of it's happening and more of hypothetical. So I just wonder if now that it's occurring, if attitudes have shifted, but I don't know if there's any way to go further down that road to get that information.
I mean, we could certainly survey again, right? I mean, I know there is certainly survey fatigue. I think we could ask this just looking at the original survey. I mean, it was just literally, it was a two-part question, right? It was the school of attendance, and we had 33%, no, I would not allow my child to participate in pool testing, period, flat out, 33%. 33% said, yes, I would confidently allow my child to participate. Yes, yes, I would likely allow my child to participate if it meant more in-person learning, and that was 20%. And then about 15% said I may allow my child to participate in such programs, but I have more questions. So there's certainly, there's certainly movement in there. We could take away some of the gray, and certainly wouldn't have to ask about if it led to more in-person learning, right? I mean, all those are, would you participate in pool testing? Would you not? So I certainly think anything we can do to streamline a survey, we increase our participation. So I think we could probably ask a very straightforward question. And I could certainly do that in time to bring that data back to you on the 14th for sure.
Thank you. And then my next question, the follow-up would be, given those responses, does that change how the nurses feel? Because if it doesn't, I kind of just want to get to the end of that road. So if the survey comes back and a high number say, yes, we'll do pool testing, does that shift how the nurses feel it will impact the overall situation?
Yeah, I don't want to speak for them. My guess would be if we had a mechanism by which we were supporting them and it wasn't completely falling on their back, they would feel very differently. They're also nurses, right? So this is clinical. So their minds go straight to the clinical benefit. And so I think when they look at that, it's such a small percentage that we're detecting, that we need a large population participating to have it be an effective tool to stop the spread, right? This is about identifying early and getting the cases out of the school before they're spread. So as long as it's a small number that could be slipping through the crack, then I think they would all say, all right, I think it's worth it, medically speaking. Then it's a matter of, all right, so I got my full-time job plus the tracing, and oh yeah, we're doing all new schools. And so it's just then how could we support them? And maybe there is an opportunity where through one of the vendors, they can provide more support. Most districts are doing it largely themselves.
Thank you. I don't want to close the door fully until we've kind of explored the whole thing, hopefully for the last time, but you never know when it's going to come back.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I should mention too, one last thing, as people are saying things, it's been extended through the 30th of June, and there's a discussion about whether it would be continued through summer school. So all of the summer programming that we, our regular extended school year through special education, as well as, Kim's been working on with the principals and lots of people, extensive additional summer programming that we normally wouldn't be offering. So there's a discussion that it may continue through September 1st for the testing.
All set, Caitlin?
Yeah, sorry, I did the hangout thing where I just stopped. I apologize.
Like I said, it seems to be a thing about this conversation. Maureen, looks like we're back to you.
Just quickly, I just wanted to mention, Brian, I don't have the information in front of me, but we also surveyed our teachers on the pool testing, and if I remember correctly, it was like a 50, pretty close to a 50-50 split, that some would participate and some wouldn't. And I'm just curious to see if the teachers were asked if that number would change now that they are vaccinated, maybe that number would go down in who would be interested in participating.
So it was 30, I gotta put my glasses on, I'm trying it, it's just not working. it was about 29% yes, absolutely would participate. About 20% yes, I would likely participate if it was leading to more in person. About 25% I may participate, but have questions, and about 26% no, I would not participate.
So, okay, I'm just, the teachers are also an important part of this picture as well. So I just wanted to refresh my memory on those numbers. So thank you. And that's all I have, Narissa, nothing else.
Thanks, Maureen. Paul Goldner.
I would be curious to see data too, but those hard no's that we had before, if they stay no's, I can't see us getting to a percentage where it seems worth doing. And so we have to be over 70% at a bare minimum participating to get meaningful data out of this, I feel like, to get meaningful usage. On the other hand, I absolutely think it's important. I think this is a good tool, not just for keeping everybody safe, but also in the future, we're going to be looking at this data and doing research off of this data. And the more complete this data is, the better understanding of infectious diseases our society is going to have and be able to stop this in the future. So I guess I'm saying I want a survey, but I can't see the results of this survey coming back and saying we should do this.
All right. Other comments? Paul Mayat.
My only other thought, and I don't know if this leads too much as a question in the survey, is that in addition to making people feel safe and all of that, it won't increase our obviously we're coming back. It might improve our ability to stay in and not have classes or groups be sent out. And I wonder if that's the only thing. I agree with what Paul just said, that if we've got that 33% hard no, that's a game stopper right there. I wonder if any of them would, if they were thinking about, okay, that would keep us open or improve our ability to be open, if that might be the only thing I could see changing their minds. That's just my thought. Nothing else.
Well, interesting concept. I guess my fear would be definitely very cautious about surveying and suggesting anything that might happen based on responses. So by golly, if we implement testing and we had to shut down, if we're Barnstable, right? You said, right? And so I worry about that. I think it's certainly the personally 2-question survey. What school do you attend and would you participate? The brief explanation could certainly say these are all about tools to shift and stay in-person learning. So I think setting the context is one thing. Asking it in a question, I think, would potentially.
Oh no, I agree. A leading question. I mean, that definitely pushes the boundaries as a leading question.
Yeah.
All set, Paul? All right, Linda?
Okay, you guys just have to bear with me. My tongue and lips are numb from the dentist.
Oh, no.
So the question that I have is this going to, I know, Brian, that the department that is paying for the pool testing you had said that it was going to cost us some money to administer that testing. Is that still true?
That would still be true. So there would be some cost. We had modeled that using 2 individuals that may or may not be involved with our town in contact tracing, whose names you have seen and heard many times, contracting with them to largely perform the testing. I have to find the breakdown. It was $65,000 per month, and I want to say about 25 of that. I'd have to go in and get the breakdown. It was a little less than half of that was actually the processing of the no, a little less than half of that. More than half of that was the processing of the testing. So if I'm recollecting, it was about 20,000 of that or more was the cost of the staffing required to do that.
Okay, because that'd be really interesting to find out the capacity of how many people want to do the pool testing as to whether we continue to do it.
Yeah, so certainly, I mean, the hope today was just to give you an update, right? I don't want to speak for anyone, but it certainly sounds like there's interest in continuing this discussion on the 14th. So I can certainly come back to you on the 14th with a lot more information. New survey data, interest in doing it, and then what would the cost be borne by the district to be able to do it, certainly. Yeah, that's a great question, Linda.
Okay, that's all the question that I had.
Okay. Any other comments or questions from the committee? Erin?
Do you think it makes sense to talk to the nurses again and maybe survey the staff before you send another survey out to the parents, just to see even if there's an appetite for it? Because I know you said the participation piece of it is really key, and we can at least gauge, for starters, whether or not the nursing staff is in agreement at about like a 70% participation rate with that us would be worth it, as well as whether or not the staff is even interested.
That's possible. Yeah, we could do it that way.
I mean, last time we took this back and we talked to the data review group, I believe, was where we had the conversation. So it was, kind of that group. I don't know that the health agents are going to be that interested in this one, but maybe we can do like a subset to have that conversation. I don't know. That leaves Tara representing kind of the school nurses, and then contact tracing liaison, and I feel like I'm missing somebody, but yeah. To at least give us some take on where they're at. Does that make sense, Erin?
Yeah, I was
I
throwing it out there for an idea, just so that if we don't see that we're gonna have much change between those two groups, we shouldn't probably send it out to the families again.
I mean, from what I've heard from the committee and from Brian, I kind of feel like they're the flip sides of the same coin. I think you have to have them both to be able to have that conversation, because I don't know, to my thinking, it's one of those, like, what if it ends up saying 65% and they've said 70, do you then say that that's a no and you don't want to survey? Like, I'm not sure where those lines are. So, and I guess personally, I'd also be interested in hearing more from kind of the districts that have taken it up recently, because I mean, doing the math off of the governor's press release when it first came out, because that's where I first saw this about it being free for the rest of the year, the number of students that they say is tested was only about 1.5% of the total students in Massachusetts K-12. And we know that, I mean, it's varied over time, but like 60% of them have been in person to some degree or another during kind of recent months. So that's a really small percentage. And from the towns that I saw initially, they tended to be wealthier communities that were less hard hit by COVID. So I'd be interested, as some of the other ones have started to bring students back and have gotten into programs like this, to kind of see what the more recent testing has yielded out of the results of pooled tests like this. It's such a small number, and I don't know, I would be afraid, right, that if we're looking at the percentages, that those results are skewed. So I'd also be curious as to how that rolls out over time.
Say that again, what would be skewed?
The percent positives.
Skewed low, skewed high?
Skewed low. If they're only testing 1.5% of the total students, and we know far higher numbers of those have been in person during that time, and we know it's the water towns, right, that have been testing, it's a different demographic than what we know has been hit by COVID.
Also speaks to the participation rates, because at that webinar they announced there were 1,000 schools that are participating. and it's 1% of the students in the district or in the state, at 1.5% of the students in the state, that's
Yeah.
1,000 is the vast majority, or the majority of districts and schools are participating to some capacity, and only 1% of students are actually participating. So I think,
Although the dates cited were also like 2 weeks prior to the thing, which is barely into the program for some people. As far as I know, some of the districts that applied initially are just getting in now and getting it up and running. So I don't know. That's what I've heard from other school committees. So, but I'd be curious as to see how that rolls out as well, to see how that goes. So I don't know. Am I hearing general desire to run another survey? I mean, I think I've heard kind of the conversation trending in that direction. Does anybody have objections to running another survey? Don't see any objections. So I would ask, I guess, that we go ahead and do that, Brian, and just run another short survey, see if the results have changed at all, and we can set up a conversation with the data review group in between. I mean, this is always in the back of my mind because I'm constantly reading guidance too, is that the guidance that we have all recommends this. Even if it's low participation rates, they all recommend pooled testing to try and find cases. And I mean, I've seen many epidemiologists float the idea of doing this on kind of a wider basis too, that there should be, these low costs, like fast pooled, in some cases, tests that are run much more frequently to be able to catch cases. So I don't know, I guess I always have that in the back of my head too. Like, we have our local reality, but we're also handed these kind of best practice scenarios, including things like masking and ventilation and all those things. And we're following the rest of them, and we're not following this one. And I guess I don't know, I just always have that in the back of my head too. So I just wanted to voice that because it hadn't been voiced yet. All right, any further discussion on this?
so I'm bringing this information back to you for the 14th.
That'd be great.
Right.
Perfect, thank you. Any other question on full in person while Brian's running updates? I have one, and that was on staffing. I know we were looking for monitors, Brian, and that had kind of been flagged as something that, because we have, tents for middle school, high school lunches now, and much broader spaces and hallway monitors and things like that you were looking for. Have you been able to find those?
So we have not found them in the numbers we had hoped we would find them. But at the middle school, high school specifically, and it's actually the high school is the most pressing need. We actually worked with our TRTA representatives, and we'll be paying those that are on a prep period contractual rates to be able to provide coverage. So it's not a full teaching rate, obviously, to provide coverage, but those that are interested to give up, if they have a 90-minute block in B block, that they would give that up to provide coverage, that they would be paid additional to do that. So there is, Patrick was saying there's quite a few who have said they're willing to step up and do that during their prep, get a little extra money. So that's going to be hallways, that's going to be at lunch, that's going to be wandering around. Certainly the passage times, right? The between those 5 minutes are certainly the most concerning when we have all the students in the hallways. But yeah, so not by separate monitors. There have definitely been a few that have applied and hired, but largely still no takers. But the biggest issue at the high school is being addressed in a different way.
Is the plan to continue to advertise for those then, and hopefully get the teacher? Okay, I just get concerned about teachers not having prep periods when they need them. So.
Well, yeah, no, I mean, they're giving it up to get money, and then they'll be prepping on their own time. So they're, so it's not every teacher, but those that are interested.
Understood.
Yep.
All right. Anything else on full in person? Erin.
So you just triggered me also to think, what does the staffing shifts look like for when we have to change around things as we're going back on the 7th? How many roles are being shifted, that sort of thing? Are we moving TAs around? How are things shifting?
Yeah, it's largely stayed. Everyone who stayed, I think Kyle, there are two individuals, one who was due to come back and will not be coming back, but there's been a sub in place and the sub will remain for the year. And then one other individual we mentioned earlier at the elementary level in the remote academy who was teaching remotely and is not able to come back in person. Other than that, there's no shifts. That's not true. There's always shifts, right? On a normal year, there are people shifting, but there are not any shifts due to this change to full in person beyond what we already had in place.
So right now, all the people that are in a current classroom are going to stay with that classroom for the rest of the year, the assistants, the whole bit.
Correct.
There may be a few assistants that have to shift. I will just add that at the elementary level,
Yeah.
but there
talk
are
about
very
that a
few,
little?
but very few.
All right. Can you expand a little on that, Kim?
So if we had one class that did not have a lot of students in it and the numbers were low, and that particular class was receiving maybe somebody who had some, who was on an IEP or had some instructional services and they needed some additional support, then we would have to work through a schedule so that maybe they didn't have an IA in the past, but they needed to get an IA to support that child.
So they would shift with the other class.
Yes. Yep.
Thanks.
All set then, Erin? Okay. Anybody else? Last chance, questions on full in person? On the update? All right. Linda, I'm gonna try and take this off of you since you're since you had your dentist experience earlier today. The next item on the agenda is the review of the COVID related policies. We've actually already gone through these as a first reading, small amendment in the last meeting. They were approved as a first reading now. So this is just a second reading. Does anyone have questions on these? Because I don't want to force Linda to go back through them if she doesn't have to. All right. Seeing the, oh, go ahead, Paul Lees.
So Brian, this is a question for you. It talks in,
Oh, Paul, we just lost your audio.
how about now?
You're good.
Yep, you're good now.
Better. So
Yes.
it talks in one of the policies about the school resource officer, the status perhaps changing if visitors are stopped from going into the building. And I just would like some feedback on your thoughts about that, Brian.
So was that in the COVID related policies? That wasn't in the mask, correct? It was in the,
No, not in the mask, in the COVID.
I'd have to pull up the exact language. Would you mind reading the?
No, not at all. It says basically, subject to any current law or regulation, the superintendent shall report to the school committee of any change in the status of the school resource officer. And then it says in parens, if the district eliminates visitors to the school during the school day, the SRO may be impacted.
So we've had no change. So that's, again, that was a global blanket. However, I think it addresses 20 different policies. I'm making that number up, a number of policies. That is not something, so certainly there are districts who said no visitor could ever come in. We've certainly taken the approach to say, if a visitor isn't absolutely necessary, we're not having them in, whether that's an IEP meeting that can happen via Zoom, or that's a vendor who was coming in to do work that wasn't necessary. Early on, very strict. And certainly that's relaxed as time goes on and things have become more and more necessary. But no, nothing has changed with the SRO. Our SRO was missing in action for about 2 weeks because he was out in other training, so they were supported by other departments, officers. But no, SRO still full-time in the building, functions as doesn't literally, but functions as a Treyton staff member.
Thank you.
Good question.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right, can I get a motion to approve, hang on a second, I gotta pull the letters, to approve policies EBCFA and EBC supplemental as previously approved as the second and final reading, please.
I'll make the motion.
Erin?
Second.
Paul Goldner. All right, any discussion? All right, seeing none, I need a roll call vote, please. Erin,
Yes.
Paul Goldner.
Yes.
Thank you. Maureen.
Yes.
Thank you. Caitlin.
Yes.
Thank you. Paulise.
Yes.
Thank you. Linda.
Yes.
Thank you. Paul Mayette.
Yes.
Thank you. And I'm a yes as well. So those all pass as a second reading. And that was the last item on the agenda. So our next meeting is set for April 14th at 7 p.m. and that will be our regular business meeting. And I believe that's it. Can I get oh, go ahead, Paulise.
I do have one question. So Shannon, this is going to circle back to you in a second. But Brian, you used the term earlier tonight that somebody was an interim position over at Amesbury. Who are you referring to?
The superintendent,
And that is who?
Elizabeth McAndrews.
Oh, okay. Where's Jared Fulgoni?
He is no longer the superintendent in Amesbury.
All right. So Shannon, here's your question. Brian didn't answer my question. I said, where is he? But he we'll get to that, I guess. So Shannon, Mr. Fulgoni left around 2012, and that was around the time you left. He went to Haverhill. Where'd you go? To Haverhill.
I went to Haverhill.
Okay.
I
And then Jared went and left to go to Amesbury. And where'd you go?
to Amesbury.
All right. So here's my question. In your black crystal ball, where is Jared going next?
I don't.
Is he coming back here?
I didn't know Jared before I went to Haverhill. He
I'm
worked
just
at
teasing.
Treyton, but we didn't work very close.
Paul's question is, where's Brian going?
No.
Is that what you're
No.
insinuating?
That's not nice, Narissa. No, but seriously, Brian, where is he now? Where is Jared Fulgoni?
I'm going to not comment. He is no longer the superintendent in Amesbury.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Not
enough of
my
that, I
place
guess.
to comment.
As they would say in court, Paul, I believe, I don't like your line of questioning.
Fair enough.
Plead the fifth.
Yeah, plead the fifth. There you go.
I'll call Brian.
Alright.
afterwards.
All right, Paul, that leaves you because you know what time it is.
Yep, it's time to go. I make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you.
I'll
I get-
second.
Who is that, Erin?
It was me, Maureen.
Maureen. Okay, thanks, Maureen. All right. And I need a roll call vote, please. Erin,
Yes.
Paul Goldner,
Yes.
Maureen,
Yes.
Caitlin,
Yes.
Paulise,
Yes.
Linda,
Yes.
Paul Mayette.
Yes.
All right, thank you. And I am a yes as well. So that is a wrap for tonight. Thank you all very much, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks. And good luck
everyone.
tomorrow surviving April Fool's Day.
That's right. Congratulations again, Shannon. Thank you all for the support.
Thank you.
Have a great evening.
Congratulations,
everyone.
Shannon.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Shannon.
Oh, thank you.